Today we'll be talking about requirements, elicitation, and analysis. So think of yourselves as a team of developers who are thinking about the next interesting product that you're going to develop. As we discussed earlier, we'll be developing a new social media system. It doesn't have to have a set of very original features, but the features that we are going to implement will represent a collection of things that perhaps are already there that some other systems have. Maybe you would want to take a feature from Facebook and another feature from Twitter, and yet another feature from something else, and put them into something new and make it your own. So the objective of our activity today is to brainstorm and come up with a list of interesting features that a system like this is going to have. Again, the features do not necessarily have to be absolutely brand new. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to figure out what will be interesting, what will be the most important, what is going to set our system, our project aside from everything else that's out there. As we did before, we're going to use LEGO Series Play to generate our ideas. So I want every one of you to think about one feature, a single feature of this application that you think will be important to include into the set of features of our application. You're going to take 2 minutes to build a model representing your idea, and then when everybody is done building, then we will take turns explaining these ideas. Any questions? Okay, you have 2 minutes to build. When everybody is done presenting their idea, I would like you to think about a concise description of your feature. 1, 2, 3 words. And I will give you sticky notes and a pen to write it there, hopefully in legible letters, so that I can collect all those ideas and put them on the whiteboard.
My feature is going to allow for users to use a ranking system to help spot fake news. So whether or not a source is credible and everything else, and allows for all the users of the social media platform to put in their vote to see if it, help identify fake news. So I would probably sum it up in just a fake news alert.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, this was a quick representation of the gamifying aspect of social media. Snapchat is very gamified with things like streaks and all, how long you can keep up correspondence with someone. And this window here is kind of like a mirror representation of vanity, because a lot of social media outlets tend to use that. But the main idea here is just gamifying the platform.
Okay.
My model is going to represent utilizing the GPS of your phone to create sort of like a digital geocache. So people can submit their own photos to like a location, and people who come across this location will be alerted that there's a collection of images that they could perhaps view and add to their own. So I would say maybe just digital geocache as a concise way of putting it.
Okay, so let's recap. We have a drone food delivery. We have fake news alert. We have gamification, video synchronization, digital geocaching, messaging, and a photo market. A question for everyone. Are there any things that you believe are maybe overlapping here?
I don't believe overlapping, but I think a few of them would work very well together.
Like, for example, what?
Video synchronization, digital geocaching, and the photo market, I believe, all kind of touch down in the same area, but they're all different in their own right.
Try to think about this collection of features in a way that would help you figure out, are there any really important things that are missing? What is the, not necessarily a single most important feature of our system, but what is the theme? Because right now, we have a lot of interesting things covering a very, very broad ground. We probably want to focus on something, not necessarily excluding any of these ideas that are already here. It's important to capture everybody's idea, to have a possibility for everybody to speak up, to have everybody's voice heard. This is what we're trying to do here. But at the same time, we want to come up with something that is coherent and interesting. So now that we have the results of our first round of idea generation up there in the front, we're going to the second round. So take 2 minutes to think about yet another interesting feature that you would like to have included in our system, build a model representing your feature, and be ready to present it to the entire team. Any questions? You have 2 minutes. So now we have the second round of models representing the features for our new system. Let's start from the other end of the table. So what do you have there?
I would like to add negotiation in the area, for example, in the country. So this is the photo who has the lower ranking, and this is the top one.
All right, mine was a little bit broad, but I realized that we have completely neglected to incorporate profiles into our ideas. And I had these two people, they're like users, and the glass reflective piece is kind of more like a mirror, because in social media, in sites like Facebook, we want to reflect ourselves in a manner of speaking. But I put these little orange pieces, ideally it's supposed to be like gold if we had any more present, that people would want to feel rewarded for projecting the best image of themselves in their profiles.
Very interesting. So what do you want to call it?
Profiles plus plus.
Okay.
My feature is actually going to be called local connection. So I thought about, instead of always being on social media or whatnot and finding like a broader scope, but to bring it more of a communal scope, to saying people can link up with others in their town, or also businesses can link up with other people and maybe publicize events or happenings that are going on locally, and also maybe bring in tourism in a smaller places other than just looking into like bigger cities and seeing what else is going on. And then people that were from outside that town could say, maybe look up places in that nearby area and find what's going on. So I was going to call it Local Connect.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Now, let's take a moment and again to review everything that we have so far on the table. So in this latest round, we have a ranking system, local connect, profiles, interest matching, universal geolocation, social media synchronization, price negotiation, and ranking of photos. Let's do this. Let's collect all the sticky notes, put them on the board, and try to take a broader perspective. Okay? So this is everything we have. These are all the features that we've identified so far. What I would like you guys to think about is, can you see some of the features maybe that somehow would make sense to put together in any different way? Maybe you would say some things are kind of should go along together. Maybe they're related to one broader area. So are there any groupings that you see that you would like to identify here? Anything?
Interest matching could go with those.
Okay, I see. Would everybody else agree that there is some kind of connection, some kind of reason for logical grouping of these two?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what else?
So I think that we should have, gamification kind of being like the broad blanket term. Yeah.
So photos, like you said, photos is within a ranking system, it's just a smaller feature of the bigger ranking system.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like it. Okay, what else?
What about the fake news alert with the ranking system? I'd said earlier that it allows users to rate and spot fake news, and maybe it would just fall under the ranking system.
Or maybe a ranking system will be a big part
Right.
of this, because how exactly are you going to spot fake news? You probably can write algorithms that will do that, but you could also, at least in part, crowdsource the same functionality, just like tagging spam. If other people say that, okay, this news article is fake news, if too many people say that, that's probably true.
Right.
All right, so what do we have? It seems like we have 3 big clusters here. Let's try to take stock of this and focus on each cluster. So this cluster, we have the social media synchronization, interest matching, and local connect. How could you generalize all this? I mean, these 3 features. What are they about?
Socialization.
It's a personal connections.
So it's all about connections among people,
Mhm.
helping people connect, and doing other things based on those connections. So this cluster is about establishing connections. What about this cluster? we have gamification, profiles, a ranking system, and within the ranking system, ranking photos as one of the features, and fake news alert as something that is based, at least in part, in a big part, on the ranking system. What about this cluster?
In a lot of social media sites, there's some kind of feature that makes the user satisfied for participating in it. Like in Snapchat, when you have a continued correspondence with someone, has a streak that's very satisfying to a lot of people.
We're indulging their competitive spirit.
But this is kind of a layer or several layers of incentives why people would find it interesting or sometimes even necessary to participate in the system. This is, you might say, it's a way of engaging, of helping the system engage its users with itself. And that would drive the ranking system. This is the reason why we put it together. And it's all based on the profiles. What about this cluster? So we have universal geolocation for all the features within the system, which enables digital geocaching of pictures, which goes along with the photo market and the price negotiation within the photo market. And the reason why we connected these two things is because photos are obviously geolocated. So what's this? What's the big idea behind this cluster?
Communication with images.
Okay. What else?
Based on location.
So images are going to be yet another engaging feature to help users communicate with each other. Not necessarily communicating through video or messaging, but also through pictures that they take collectively. We have these three, I'm not sure that they're outliers, but these three features that are sitting there, not necessarily connected to everything else. It could tell us two different things. Either they are important features just by themselves. That's one possibility. It could also tell us that maybe they don't belong because they don't fit very well with everything else. So let's focus on each one of these three. We have video synchronization. So what was this about exactly?
Well, if you're all attending the same event, we would be able to take the videos that you are taking of that live event or of whatever's happening and take it from multiple angles, perspectives, and then be able to synchronize it together based off of the audio in order to deliver a more full experience to people and make one video of it. Kind of like cutting from camera 1 to camera 2, so your image, somebody walks in front of you for those 5 seconds. And I think that could actually fall under multiple categories between the interest matching on the left or all the way to the right with the universal geolocation. It would also use that as part of its technology.
Could you explain how exactly it's going to connect to either of those two or both?
Well, you need a universal geolocation because you need to be at the same place at the same time. So that's huge. And then also interest matching, so you're at a concert, sports game of any level, from your kid's sports game to high school, professional. And making one continuous video would be kind of nice to summarize the event for you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So clearly there is some connections between this feature and some of the other features in here. But because we haven't, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, we haven't identified those connections. I think now these connections are quite obvious to everyone. But still the fact remains that we didn't catch this from early on, which might suggest, not necessarily it will suggest, might suggest maybe it doesn't belong. So the next question is to the entire group, do you think this is important?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it is important, well, it's not a big deal that it's just sitting there. It's just an important feature on its own. But as we just discussed, it actually is strongly connected with these two clusters. So unless there is a strong opinion that this doesn't really belong to our system, we should keep it here. Again, there is nothing wrong with one or several features just being out there by themselves. What about messaging?
I think messaging would be a thing that would kind of connect two profiles and allow them to communicate, so make use of the profiles we talked about.
But it's not necessarily driven by gamification, like
Right.
everything else in here.
That's true.
But
It would still rely on profiles.
Okay. So, what does it tell us about the messaging feature? Is it important?
When you check in at restaurants and stuff on Facebook, for example, it says, I checked in here with my 4 other friends.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree
it
with
could
that,
be
yeah.
more than just delivery.
Okay, so what does this tell us?
So like your broad idea for whatever product you have should incorporate all three of those clusters and the ideas in each cluster.
The questions that we should be asking ourselves: do all of these features make sense to us?
Yes.
Yeah.
These three clusters and these two strong features, they tell us what exactly we should be focusing on. Another question that we should be asking: do these features represent a complete set of requirements? Now that we've organized them into these clusters and tried to make a better sense of what we have here, you might realize that some things are missing. Some important things may be missing here. Is there anything that maybe kind of jumps at you and you say, yeah, this is all good, but
We won't make any money. There's nothing about advertising or how this business will be profitable.
I think this is a great point. Yes, we have all these great features that probably would attract the users to our system, and it seems like we have a strong possibility of attracting businesses where we're talking about food delivery, connecting local businesses together. But what about making profits?
Also, well, the photo market you could take very small cuts off of, but that's, I don't think, enough to cover
Absolutely.
how large this is going to become.
Absolutely. So another hint at some kind of monetization of the system would be from the photo market, right here. So there has to be something, some kind of features of the system that I think we're missing right now. Something about making a profit. Are there any other features that you think we could be missing here?
We could reward the users for generating content.
What kind of content?
Photos, maybe finding news articles, etc.
So we already have photos there. We know that the content, but photos are going to be a part of the content. And you mentioned news articles. Well, we don't have news articles mentioned here explicitly. We do have fake news alert, but that implies that we're going to have a news feed of some kind.
Highly ranked items,
What items?
anything you're sharing,
But what are you sharing?
Literature.
photos,
What else?
videos,
Photos and videos.
ratings
so
of
we
restaurants,
mentioned
anything.
we mentioned some of these things, but we didn't explicitly mention the feature about creating news content, whatever that content might be. It's right now it's a little bit dispersed here and there.
So like blog posts or articles.
Perhaps some kind of posts. I'm not saying we should call it blog posts. Whether those are, well, so messages are between the users, but something that is publicly posted. Any kind of content item. Again, whether it's photos, news articles, just posts,
So like a live feed maybe.
maybe. Just like you said, this content has to come from somewhere. And I think this is an important feature that right now is not there. Implicitly, it is there, but there is no single feature that would say a user can generate content. So this is how we checked for the completeness of our requirements here. What about their consistency? Can you see that maybe there are some features here that we've identified that are kind of contradictory to each other?
Well, if multiple people all like something, then other people are saying that's fake and this is that, they might be offended.
But that's not a contradictory feature. I see your point.
Yeah.
That opinions of different people could contradict to each other, but it doesn't mean that different features contradict with themselves. What do you guys think about the result that we have here?
I think it has enough features that would keep users engaged, and their content would be what makes our app complete. So we're depending on the users, but at the same time, it would be over a broad enough perspective that we wouldn't have to worry about like the activity going on, maybe.
Our social platform mainly relies on our interests as well as local events going on. So because of that, I feel like it's gonna possibly bring a lot of people. Interest people, because they're gonna see what's going on as well as what other people are interested in, and hopefully connect to each other.
I think it might be a little bit too general. I think everything should stem from ranking.
I think this is another interesting observation. As a result of us pouring through all the different features that we've identified, it seems like we could be lacking focus. It could be a little too broad. So as a result of our discussion here, we have an interesting set of requirements representing 3 clusters focusing around a photo feature and geolocation, gamification that drives ranking and fake news alerts, and making connections between people's interests and locations and perhaps different businesses and users. Also 2 strong features here, video synchronization and the messaging feature. As you mentioned, this is probably kind of a combination between, what was it, universal geolocation and
Local connect and interest matching.
local connect. And if we were to stick with the drone food delivery, that would be an outlier. If we were to generalize that as just about food delivery or restaurants, we could make a case maybe this should be one here. So that's it.